Well, greetings again.
Greetings.
In this instalment, we're going to have the open discussion of the paper 002b. It's titled The Shema, and this paper explains the theology of the Shema and the structure of the Bible. So thank you, Wade.
Thanks, Martin. The Shema is based on the concept, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, translated from the Hebrew, which is Shema Yishrael, Yahovah Elohenu, Yahovah Ehad. Now this deals with the worship of the one true God. Deuteronomy 6:5 is integral to the Shema, and it follows on as, and you shall love your God, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Now that's the function of the Bible, is dealing and with worshipping and following under the laws of the one true God, Eloah, who became the Elohim. Now, Eloah is the name of the one true God. Strong's Hebrew Dictionary 433, Eloah. He created all of the Elohim, the sons of God. That's, he created Christ, he created Satan, he created all of the morning stars and all of the Elohim. And he is the central object of worship and control and will of the universe. And it's most important that we understand that this triune God has been superimposed on Christianity under false pretenses by Satan and those who follow him. The structure of worship is geared through the entire Bible, dealing with how the temple was created, and we'll also look at shortly how God established Israel as the focal point, training point of the faith under Messiah. And Messiah was created and made the Elohim of Israel under Deuteronomy 32 verses 8 to 9. He became the angel of the presence. He spoke with the patriarchs. He wrestled with the patriarch, and he literally trained Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Israel was to be his inheritance. And from that sequence, all the nations of the world were to be called and dealt with. In this, the structure of the Shema, we deal with and try and explain, and we do explain and try, the structure of the nature of God, who the Yahovah is, who Yahovah is. You've got people saying things like, oh, the name of God is Yahweh. That's not true. And Yahovah is a third person form of the verb, which means he causes to be. Now, Yahovah has a number of beings. The angel of Yahovah, paper number 24, explains that it's an honorific conferred on all of the Elohim who come as messengers for the one true God. So many people can be called Yahovah and were in Abraham's time, in Genesis 18 and 19, 3 Yahovahs came to Abraham, and then they went, 2 of them went to Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah, and the 3rd stayed with Abraham. And then those 2 Yahovahs, as they were all referred to as Yahovah, they took Lot and his wife and 2 daughters out of Sodom, and then fire was rained down from Yahovah in heaven. There was a Yahovah stationed above them, and he then destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities of the plain with fire from heaven. So there were 4 Yahovahs at the one time talking to Abraham and Lot in Genesis chapters 18 and 19. So that's not the name of the one true God. It merely is an honorific, and they referred to them as Yahovah, which meant he causes to be. They were referring as an honorific to the Creator God, Eloah, who was Yahovah of hosts. And that duplicity comes into the text of the Bible all the time, and unless you don't understand that, you really don't get it. You won't be able to unravel the meaning, the true meaning of the biblical texts. Now, Yahovah is the Jews, when they are talking about Yahovah, they always will render that as Elohim. When they are referring to Yahovah, they will always render that as Adonai. Right. So that makes a distinction between the subordinates who carry the name Yahovah, unless it's Yahovah of hosts, and Yahovah, who is the one true God.
Right.
And so all of these names are important, and they should be understood. We explain them in this text. It helps you get to the different references and who they were. It talks about the names of God. It talks about the Elohim as a plurality, Eloah as the one true God. And you think that the Muslims have it wrong because they say Allah? No, they don't have it wrong. That is the Arabic equivalent of the Eastern Aramaic, which was Eloah. And that is the equivalent of the Hebrew Eloah. So there is only one true God, and it's Eloah. The biblical structure shows that again and again and again.
And Wade, what would you say to those people that say you can't mention the sacred names of God, or they put little asterisks in there?
No, that's nonsense. That comes from these traditions through these people who think that if you utter the name, you have control over the spirit. We covered that in the work Abracadabra, the meaning of names.
Right.
And this not mentioning the name means, you see, if you mention the name, then they'll get their sorcerers to utter that name and then seize control of the being that is of that name.
Right. So that's why the Jews, when you see in texts, where's the O gone?
Yes.
GD.
Good. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it's done so that it's based from a pagan heretical concept that by uttering the name you have control over the deity.
Right.
And that's what it is, and it's got nothing to do with the Bible.
And that part of the paper here that talks about those names and has links to the other papers of that, help us to understand the significance of the number of names that God goes by and the actual meaning of each of those names, from His mercy right through His awesome power.
Yes, the names of God are listed in 116, and that understanding those names is very important to understanding what's happening in the activities of God in the Bible.
Right.
And Yahovah Sabaoth, for instance, is one name of God. So Yahovah of the hosts.
Right.
And you get renderings from different systems. But the Elohim as a plurality is dealt with here. And when Eloah created the Holy Spirit, and that was the first of His creations, because He needed the Holy Spirit in order to tie the Elohim into Him. So Eloah created the Holy Spirit, and then He created Christ, Satan, and the other sons of God. And then He tied them, gave them the Holy Spirit, which tied them into Him. So then He changed name to Ha-Elohim, which means the God.
Right.
So the Elohim.
Elohim. Right.
So there were all of the other sons of God who were Elohim, but He was the central, the Elohim.
And of course the Holy Spirit isn't an Elohim. It is the power
Yes,
of.
the power of Eloah
Right.
as Elohim.
Yeah.
Now, that was carried over when the Septuagint was translated, that is, when the Masoretic text was translated to the Septuagint. They created terms in the Greek which they didn't have in the Greek language, and which explained the Hebrew terms.
Right.
So some of the Greek terms for God, for instance, they would develop as Ho Theos instead of Ha Elohim. So Ha Elohim became Ho Theos. And they used the different cases, the nominative and accusative case, to make a distinction between the God, Ha Elohim, and the subordinate gods, the sons of God.
Right.
So that's not developed, and the Trinitarian theologians avoid that like the plague.
Right. Yes.
And it does not do anyone any favours.
And I found, well, yeah, that's very detailed and easily read and explained here. It's not like you have to be someone very proficient in Hebrew or Aramaic to understand it. It's there. The names are there. They're quite easy to understand. And then I notice you go on that it also helps to explain the structure of God's, even of the tabernacle and the reflection of all that through the heavenly government of God.
Yes, it's you see, the whole purpose of the creation was so God could develop humans as the next part of the Elohim, so that they would become joined together, and He extended the Elohim to incorporate the humans,
right.
And He used the humans to train the heavenly hosts of the existing Elohim, so that all the sons of God got responsibility for training the human species, and that then developed them as responsible Elohim.
Yes, right. Yep.
But of course, Satan, 1/3 of the host, didn't like that. They didn't like having to deal with us because they thought we were inferior. It's a bit like racism, where you think there's one of the races is not really up to your standard.
Right.
And
Spiritual racism.
yes, it was spiritual racism, where they didn't want us being created because we wouldn't be good enough.
Right. We will never be able to be higher than them now.
Yeah, and that's the way it happened.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that in the vineyard of God when we deal with what the purpose of Israel was. But this is critical to an understanding of the structure and nature of God.
Yeah, I was just going to mention in that it goes on and talks about the morning stars, which, people think, well, God's a morning star, Christ is the morning star, and it goes on to explain what those morning stars really are.
Yes.
Satan was a morning star.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, a fallen
He is
star.
the current day star of this planet.
That's right, he is the current day star of this planet right now,
Yeah.
and Christ is going to come and replace him.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it's, again, it talks about cherubim. It goes right through the structure of these.
The Logos.
The working of the terminology logos, and again, what a concise paper.
Yeah.
And again, available free of charge, no charge on these papers.
One of the things that I noticed was that out of Freemasonry, and particularly in the US, they talk about how Christ and Satan are have the term morning stars. Therefore, they jump to the conclusion that Christ and Satan are the same being. They're just two sides of the same coin. And I've heard them say it. I know that's the doctrine. And I've had one of the ladies of the Eastern Star, which is the female branch of Freemason, was writing to me to tell me that. So I said, I'm sorry, you just got on the wrong tram, lady. But anyway, I did explain to her why it was wrong.
And it goes on that Leah Wade in the paper, and it touches the Shema in the Quran. So
Shema, yeah.
It's the Islamists, of course, have got a lot of truths which the world doesn't think it does have.
Yes, what you have to understand with Islam is that when Christ ordained the 70, they were from different parts of the world. For instance, one of my relatives was ordained by Jesus Christ from Britain. And he went there with Joseph of Arimathea, who was his uncle's grandfather-in-law.
Wow, right.
Because Joseph's daughter married Brown the Blessed, my 49th great-grandfather. And his daughter, their daughter, married Arviragus, king of the Silurians. And he gave the hides of land at Glastonbury, the 12 hides of land, to the church. And Aristobulus went there after he was ordained. And he built and organised the church in Britain. But what happened was that also they went through Arabia and the Middle East. They went down into Nabatea. They established a church at Becca, Petra. They established churches in Damascus, and then they established a church at when they had to have the Hijra, there was a church there at in the city that they fled to, and the church that was at Becca was joined. He became, that's the prophet Qasim, and his name wasn't Muhammad at all. It was Qasim. He became a member of the church. He went to work for a family of Christians who were of Jewish descent. So there was this family of Christian Jews at Becca, not Mecca.
Right.
Mm.
And Khadijah was the woman. They call her Khadijah the Great within Islam.
Right.
She was the wife of the Prophet and a major figure. Now, her uncle taught Qasim the scriptures, taught him the Bible, taught him how to read. First of all, he didn't even know how to read. But they taught him how to read, taught him the scriptures. In fact, he learnt from the biblical structure how to read and write, and the understanding of the nature of God. He also was taught the calendar, the temple calendar. We know that because he kept a different calendar to the Jews, the Hillel worshipping Jews at the time, and the church at Becca kept a different calendar to the Jews operating out of Hillel through. There was no temple in those days, and they had a different system, and Qasim developed the faith and ultimately became the head of the church at Becca. And Muhammad means the council of the church. That's the name of the Mohammedan. And so you can develop Mohammedan status by simply becoming an elder of the church.
Right.
So, and that's what it means.
Not very understood by a lot of people.
No, it's not understood.
And look, the Shema is not a mystical book. It's actually attached to Deuteronomy, isn't it?
Yes, it's right. It's the
structure of the book, really.
Structure of Deuteronomy. Yeah. Deuteronomy 6:5.
All right. Well, look again, Wade. Thank you so much. Again, the paper's available. There's a lot of detail in it, and you won't necessarily be sitting there at the end of it scratching your head, because they are quite explanatory.
There is more in detail in here than what we've discussed. It's very expansive. So please get the paper, and then you'll be able to understand the Godhead relationship, how it should be.
Yes, it's written to be understood, not in academic officialese or whatever.
So, all right, until the next instalment.
See you soon.